I'm Olivia Amundson, and I'm here with Karla Wilke at the Range Beef Cow Symposium here in Rapid City. Thank you for being with me, Karla. Today you talked about incorporating yearlings into your cow-calf operation to use as drought mitigation, as well as maybe another means of
income diversification.
Thank you, income diversification. Can you kind of just, you talked about some of the different ways we could do that, incorporating like steers, heifers, or maybe incorporating grazing. Can you just kind of touch on that briefly?
So we talked a little bit about using yearlings as drought mitigation or as income diversification, just ways to be able to reduce numbers quickly off the range, or to have a different marketing time point or a marketing class. So that's why we talked a little bit about steers are an option. Sometimes we can retain those after weaning through winter and summer, possibly on through the finishing phase, maybe selling after summer. Just, you know, we have three options basically there. And then heifers kind of give you another marketing option if you retain those, because then they could maybe either go into a breeding program or feedlot entry, so you have a couple of options at different times as you make those culling decisions. And then we talked a little bit about custom grazing, where someone else owns the cattle and that risk, and then we just take care of the cattle, or just basically sell them the grazing time, you know, that kind of thing. So those are the three options we talked about.
Wonderful. So what are some of the things, if producers are considering looking into some of these different options, what are some things that they need to consider prior to jumping in a decision like this?
We talked a little bit about forage resources. Do you have perennial grasses? Do you have annual forages? Do you have some range that's not really conducive to running cows on anyway? We talked about labor that might be involved to think about in either scenario. Equipment, facilities. We talked about genetics. Are you do you have the genetics that might be something that another ranch would want for replacement heifers? Do you have more terminal cross genetics, and so it fits a feedlot entry system better? And then just the marketing timing, as well as different market outlets that might fit an operation to do something like this.
Wonderful, yeah. You talked a lot about different supplementation options today. You talked about winter supplementation, summer supplementation, and then also kind of that deferred supplementation. Can you touch briefly on each one of those topics?
So the take-home message, I guess, from the winter supplementation was that we often have a mindset that we want to supplement as little as we can just to kind of keep them going, and then we're going to take advantage of compensatory gain when we put them on higher quality forage. And that certainly is a thing that happens. Compensatory gain is a real phenomenon. But the data that we looked at actually showed that if we supplemented those cattle for a little higher rate of gain, so if we were looking at more like between 1 and 1.5 pounds a day gain instead of 0.5 to 1, that those calves supplemented at the higher rate maintained that gain all the way through finishing. And so if we actually supplemented at that very low rate and compared them to calves that were not supplemented, they actually gained the same at the end. And so you lost all that money that you put in for supplement, because the gain ended up being the same as the non-supplemented. So that was just trying to get people to rethink, you know, what they're doing a little bit. We talked about summer supplementation, in that a lot of people don't supplement in the summer because they think the cattle won't eat it, or it's high quality grass, they won't gain on it, and actually shared quite a bit of data that showed a nice linear response to supplementation on summer range. But the other thing that we shared on that was that if you own those cattle through finishing, you may not realize that additional gain, the summer supplemented gain, all the way through finishing. And so your market timing and your supplement cost are big factors in play a role in your decision whether or not to do that. And the deferred supplementation that we talked about was simply a couple of studies I shared where the cattle were either not supplemented at all or supplemented all summer of grazing versus just part of it. And those that were only supplemented toward the end part gained the same as those that were supplemented all summer. and then those groups gained more than the controls. So we certainly got a benefit from supplementation, but because those that received less supplement gained the same as those that were supplemented all summer, our cost was greatly reduced in the amount of what it cost to do the supplementation.
I found that deferred supplementation very interested, and really the fact that supplementing really does have benefits in the long term compared to not supplementing at all. So thank you very much for giving that presentation today. And I thought you said something very enlightening, I guess we can say, when you were up there, and really the caveat is you really have to be able to choose something that's going to work for your operation, and you have to kind of lay those things out, and will this make sense for what I want to accomplish? And I think that's really important to drive home, that you're really just giving us some ideas, but we have to take these ideas and considerations and see if they actually would apply on our operations. So,
Absolutely.
yep. So wonderful presentation. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here with me today and going over your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.